Hi everyone, it's Kyung. Before I get started, I just had a little disclaimer about this episode. For some reason, the audio on my end turned out really bad, so I'm so sorry for that, but I hope you enjoy this episode nonetheless. I think Kacie and I covered some great topics, and the audio should be much better by the next episode. Now, on to the podcast. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Stuttering Through Life, the podcast that's all about stuttering. I'm your host, Kyung Lee. Our guest for today is a fellow teenage girl who stutters, Kacie. Hi, Kacie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I'm so glad you're here. All right, so just for some background, Kacie, could you tell us a little about yourself and your stutter?
I'm a junior in high school and I've been stuttering for, my mom said it's been since I was like 4 or 5, but I never really noticed it until I was in about fourth grade, I think, when someone like called me out for it and I was like, oh, I speak differently? What? But like after a few years, then I started going to speech therapy, but the bad kind that taught you how stuttering is bad. And then recently I started going to my new speech therapist that encourages me to stutter.
That's great. Yeah, I'm glad you were able to make the switch between like the fixing kind and the
Mm-hmm.
acceptance kind. All right, so this episode will be slightly different from the past episodes. So, in the past, we've talked about advice for people who stutter, their experiences, and ways to feel more confident, to name a few. Uh, this episode will kind of be like an info session for people who don't stutter about what not to do when they're interacting with someone who stutters. This is a compiled list made by Kacie and I, and it also has just some common things that a lot of people who stutter has encountered. If you're not very familiar with stuttering or people who stutter, please listen closely. Things that may seem harmless or funny in the moment might actually have a larger impact that you can't see. Be respectful and kind, and you'll be just fine. All right, let's get started. So, number one is looking at people a certain way while they're stuttering. So, this doesn't mean don't make eye contact with a person because then it just seems like you're ignoring them. It just
Yeah.
means, yeah, it just means to smile and wait patiently for them to finish what they're saying. Just act, you should treat someone who stutters just as you would as you're talking to someone who doesn't stutter. You don't have to scrutinize them or look at them a weird way. It just feels weird and distracting, right?
Yes. Oh, like I've kind of had this experience, like especially when I stutter, because like you're supposed to keep eye contact, but some people look away, which is fine. But then it's like right when you do stutter, they'll like look back and like be shocked, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, I'm just stuttering. Like it's no big deal. Don't look at me like that.
Yeah, it really is no big deal.
hmm The next one is don't keep picking people who stutter to read, like especially in class.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really have this, like, this has never happened to me, but I know with my mom, she stutters. And this happened to her in high school. And there's this one teacher that kept picking on her to read,
Oh
and
no.
he knew that she stuttered. And I guess he wanted to like make her talk normal and to practice speaking more. And that's why he always picked on her. And I was just like, that's horrible. And then I never really noticed that until she told me. I was like, I can't believe people like actually would do that
Yeah.
to help people who stutter to talk better. I was just like so amazed when she told me that.
Yeah, I'm sure this isn't like super recent, but there is still kind of a misconception, right? About like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, if you just talk more and you practice some more and you just kind of slow down, then you won't stutter anymore, which is like totally not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. The next one is saying, "Can't you talk?" to someone who stutters.
Mm. I haven't really experienced this, But I, with my speech therapist that I have now, she has said that a lot of her patients or clients have said that, like, a lot of people do say that, and then that's
Yeah.
when they notice that they talk differently than other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we just need to normalize people like with a lisp, like that's normal. People who stutter, that's normal. Like there's not really like a normal for stuttering. It's just anyone who speak, like anyone can speak the way they want to speak, or how they speak is normal, and not
Exactly.
like ask people like, why do you talk different? Like that's
Yeah.
so rude to
Yeah.
even ask.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. Yeah, like
Hmm.
if you want to know, if you want to genuinely know more about stuttering and what it's like, then like it's totally fine to ask, as long as just like you say it respectfully, right? Just like
Yeah.
not like you're making fun of the person. And just
Hmm.
saying can't you talk is, it it can be really hurtful, right? Because like
Hmm.
we can talk, it just takes us like a couple seconds longer, and
Yeah.
that's all it is.
Hmm. Okay, so then the next one is when people say, "Oh, it's such an easy word to say." Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
People, I've had like my first experience was a boy in like 4th or 3rd grade, I think. He was like, "Can't you say that word?" And I was just, no, my teacher said that. Yeah, my teacher
Mm.
said that. And I was just like, "Yeah." And then she kind of just skipped over me and then just continued. I was just like, "Oh,
Oh no.
okay." But like that was my like first kind of experience with when my teacher said that. I was just like, "Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's nice."
Yeah, me too. I remember in like sixth grade, I think we had to call out our scores for a certain homework assignment because my teacher didn't want to collect all the papers, and the scores are always between like 16 to 19 or something, and I would
Hmm.
always stutter on saying like 17 or 18 or like 16,
Hmm.
like those numbers. And then I remember like this kid that sat at my table, he was like, "Can't you say the word 17?" I was like, "Yeah, I can
Mm,
say it."
it just takes you longer to say it.
Exactly, yeah. So it's not it's not the it's not the complexity of the word, or like even the simpleness of a word that
Hmm.
makes us stutter on it. It's just kind of random, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has words they stutter on more or less, and it's not the problem of like an easy or difficult word to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this next one, this is a really big one. Um, a common thing, or what seems to be a common thing among people who stutter, is stuttering on their name, right? When they introduce themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I haven't, I don't really exactly know why this happens, but I feel like it's because this is something we can't change words for, right? There's no
Hmm.
synonym to our name, and like we have to say it. So sometimes it can get a little nerve-wracking, and I know I stutter a lot on my name when I introduce myself.
Hmm.
And a lot.
And
Mhm.
oh, sorry, go
No, it's
ahead.
okay. Okay. And a lot of things people say is, "Did you forget your name?"
Hmm.
And it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would I forget my name? Yeah,
Exactly.
and I kind of understand where they're coming from, right? Like, I
Hmm.
was just kind of standing there blocking, and it seems like I wasn't saying anything, and I was just trying to get through it, but the other person doesn't know that. So it is a little bit understandable why they would say that, but
Hmm.
still, it just doesn't make sense.
Exactly. And like, even if they're trying to be funny, I'm like, that's not funny.
Yeah, it's not.
Like, it's literally not funny at all. But I haven't really had, well, a little bit, just because my name is a K.
Mhm.
And I sometimes, like, it just depends, because sometimes I stutter on Ks and sometimes I don't. So it all just depends. Like, it just depends. But
Yeah.
I know for my mom, her first name is, it starts with a sh. And a lot
Mhm.
of times she can't, like, she stutters a lot with that.
Got it.
And so after a while, like in high school, she just kind of went by her middle name.
Oh.
And so even because she works with little kids, and it's really hard for them to say sh. So she just is going by her middle name, which is a lot shorter and it's easier for the kids to say. But she even has had people like, oh, do you even know your name? And she's like, yes, I know my name. Like, I'll just go by my middle name, I guess. I'm just like, no, like it's okay to stutter. But
Yeah.
like, especially like with my name, so it just depends, I guess, on the day.
Yeah.
But sometimes I stutter on Case, sometimes I don't. But I'm not really meeting new people right now just because
Yeah.
the whole COVID. I'm not like, hi, I'm Kacie. Like I think it all just depends.
That's true. Yeah, it definitely does. I know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. In the past, I used to stutter on my name almost every single time. Like I would
Mm-hmm.
dread saying my name. This is like before COVID, obviously, when they'd be like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
what's your name?" I'd be like, "Oh no, it's happening again." But then recently, it's kind of changed. I can say it without stuttering sometimes, and other times like I don't, or I do stutter, but it's like not a big deal. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then the next thing that we want to talk about is laughing when
Yeah.
people stutter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
This is
gosh,
a big
like
one.
like especially I didn't really notice it like in middle school or when I was younger because like we talk or like have presentations and like no one would be like, oh my gosh, they messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And but like in high school more, like my freshman year, this one kid who like kind of stuttered on a word, but sort of he like didn't really know how to say it.
Yeah.
And some of the other kids started laughing and I was just like, oh no, I'm never gonna stutter ever in this class, especially if we read out loud. I was like, no, I'm not, because it literally was like this kid like was just reading from the book out loud and then he like just like kind of stuttered on just one word and then a bunch of people started laughing and I was like, oh no, you literally just made me so uncomfortable and
Oh.
like totally like discouraged me from
Mm-hmm.
talking or stuttering in this class.
Yeah.
But like laughing is a big one.
Yeah, for sure. I think this can be one of the most hurtful things you can do. And
Mm-hmm.
the unfortunate thing is that it comes kind of naturally, right? Like if someone who doesn't know what stuttering is encounters stuttering,
Mm-hmm.
then they won't like understand what's happening. They're like, why are they repeating the syllable or why are they not saying anything?
Yeah.
Then like that uncomfortability might lead to laughing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
some people laugh when they're uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
it's really good to remember that whenever you're uncomfortable because of someone else, you should never laugh just for like things, everything in general.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
just being respectful and nice. Like you just shouldn't laugh at
Mm-hmm.
like inappropriate times,
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it just not humiliating, but like you said, it's really discouraging. That's a really good word to
Mm-hmm.
say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't laugh. All right. So the next one on the list is not for people who stutter, but for people who don't stutter, but just stuttered, if that makes sense. So obviously, people who don't have a stutter just might stutter on a word sometimes, just naturally. They might be like, I don't know, it happens all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even if you know that person doesn't stutter and they mess up a word or they say something like differently, don't make fun of that person because
Mm-hmm.
it's like nothing to make fun about. And if you make fun of them for stuttering when it's not even like a consistent thing for them, then that means people who actually stutter consistently and as like a normal thing in their lives, that just discourages people who stutter a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Recently I started following like a lot of accounts that like are about stuttering and like
Yeah.
stuttering awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this one like comic strip sort of.
Oh yeah.
And it was this girl in line and then there's a boy behind her and she was in line to like buy something and she was stuttering and then the boy behind her was like, oh my gosh, like that means like I can stutter. And like that like really shows a lot, like if you just are yourself, because you don't really know who else stutters.
Yeah.
But if you like discourage it or like make fun of someone for stuttering, it's like you're literally just telling them to just don't talk. And I
Yeah,
feel like that
exactly.
happens with a lot of people who stutter. And like even with me, like with the one kid who just stuttered on one word and then they all started laughing. I was like, you just like you literally just ruined it for everybody else. It was like
Yeah.
you have to speak like perfectly.
Mhm.
Don't stutter, don't mess up. I'm like, but no one's perfect.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, the opposite of making fun of people who stutter is like treating people who stutter normally, right?
Hmm.
And for people who do stutter, like if you're at a stage right now that you're comfortable with your stutter and fine with people or fine with stuttering openly, then that might be a really encouraging thing for people around you who stutter.
Hmm.
So that's a really nice thing if you're at that stage, obviously. Like if you're
Yeah.
uncomfortable, then just like it'll take some time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And recently I went to a stuttering conference,
Oh yeah.
and this one mom of a kid who stutters, she said that she talked to one of his teachers and she said like, oh, like my son stutters and all this. And the teacher was like, oh, in my 30 years, I have never had a kid who stutters.
I doubt
And
that.
I was like, I know. And like the mom was like, well, you can see like that's a lie because you're not asking people if they stutter.
Right.
And a lot of people aren't comfortable stuttering because a lot of people don't even know what it is or
Yeah.
why they have it. So when like the mom said that, like, oh, like, yeah, the teacher said this, I was like, yeah, because you don't know. So like if you like tell your students like, okay, speak clearly, then it's totally gonna discourage like the people who stutter.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
that's why like she never had a student who stuttered, because you like she was probably like, okay, speak clearly, guys. And then I'm just like, that poor kid that was probably in that class.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's like, this is why like we need to normalize stuttering.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's totally okay to stutter. It's who you are.
Yeah,
And you shouldn't
exactly.
change who you are. Okay,
Yes.
so the next thing is people who stutter aren't mentally ill and they're not dumb.
Yes, very true. Yeah. Especially a long time ago, like many like decades ago, there was this
Hmm.
obvious misconception, right? That people who stuttered were like um yeah, like you said, like mentally ill or they had a developmental disability or they were just like some people call them like feeble-minded, which is like
Hmm.
a total euphemism. But anyway, but yeah, this is so not true. And
Hmm.
yeah, I don't even know what else I can say about that. It's just not
Well,
true.
I feel like people who don't speak like the normal way, how everyone else speaks, it's like, oh, they have something wrong with them.
Hmm.
Oh, they obviously can't speak like me. What is wrong with them?
Yeah.
And a lot of people even think like people who stutter are dumb just because we like take longer on words,
Yeah.
which I cannot see why. Like I don't even know why people think that. Cuz like if people have an accent, you're not like, "Oh, they're dumb."
Yeah.
It's just like, "Oh, it's how they speak." But then
Exactly.
it kind of changes with, "Oh, but you have a stutter. That means you're dumb." It's like,
Hmm.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And with my speech therapist now, she showed me a video of this girl in college, I think, and she was talking about stuttering. And she even discussed this. She was like, all of my friends who stutter, they're going to like UC schools, top schools, Yale. And I was just like, exactly. Like, this is an example.
Yeah, there's like nothing holding us back. Literally
Mm-hmm.
nothing. I can't think of
Mm-hmm.
a single like profession or like career or like anything in life that someone who stuttered can't do because they have a stutter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like You can literally do anything. So
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So the next one on our list is fake stuttering. So this is a thing that happens a lot in movies or videos or other media, and I'm not really talking about like an actor portraying someone who stutters. I'm talking more about like someone who's pretending to stutter just for like just to be funny or as like a plot thing, like a plot addition, because most of the time, for the ones I've seen at least, the people that pretend to stutter like this or do this fake stutter, it's usually not accurate,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I know people who stutter in a super wide variety of different ways. Like even everyone stutters differently, but
Mm-hmm.
usually they're really like it's kind of like a caricature, and it just puts this like demeaning and it's just like bad effect for people who stutter.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is good to avoid. Raising
Yeah,
awareness
definitely.
is good, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
But like I've even seen it on TikTok
Mm-hmm.
especially, and like people like just want to do things to get like more views.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you're pretending to have a stutter or pretending to like have a mental illness or like pretending to have something that you don't have,
Yeah.
it's so like discouraging for other people who actually have those things.
Exactly. It
And
just
it's
brings them
like,
down.
exactly, like, and it kind of like everyone in the comments is like, oh, you're faking it, you're faking it. And then so then people who actually stutter or people who actually have like a mental illness won't want to tell people that they have it because then others will think that they're faking it,
Exactly.
which is really terrible.
Yeah,
Like,
that is, and it's something one person can have an effect on, right? Like
mm-hmm,
if one person, like if you have like, I don't know, like 1,000 followers or something, many
mm-hmm.
people may comment on it, like you said, oh, like that's obviously fake, right? And
Yeah,
then they'll discourage one person from posting about their actual stutter and their actual experience, and that's going to be like less awareness raised. And even if they do post that, some people might comment on it, like you said, and it's just
yeah.
kind of like that butterfly effect of negativity.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about cures of stuttering and like how in movies how it's like, oh, it's like a big thing. It's like, oh my gosh, they can finally speak normally because they
Mm-hmm.
don't have a stutter anymore.
Yeah.
um I watched a movie recently and I keep forgetting what it's called, but one of the kids, he stuttered, and like throughout the whole movie he was stuttering, and then he like went to speech therapy, but it was like the bad kind where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, no more stuttering, like let's teach you how not to stutter
Yeah.
and like to avoid situations of talking. I was just like, oh my gosh, what am I watching right now?
Yeah.
And then at the end he was like cured because he like said a whole paragraph without stuttering, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, he's cured. And then like the like end of the movie he never stuttered again, and I was
Mm.
like, this is so false. Like I
Yeah.
got, it like made me so mad because I was like, there's no cure. Like this is really like telling people like, oh, you can get better if you have a stutter, and you can't because there's no cure.
Yeah, that's just not how stuttering works.
Mm-hmm. And like, yes, there is like tips on how not to stutter,
Yeah, just
but in the end you're still gonna stutter.
yeah.
And it's like, even my old speech therapist, she was like, okay, like change your words, or
Oh no.
breathe through your stomach and not through your shoulders,
What?
and fidget with things so you don't stutter. And
Oh
I was
my
just like,
goodness.
okay, yeah, this works. And
Yeah.
then with my new speech therapist, she was like, no, no, do not do that. And I was like,
Yeah.
why? And she was like, that's not how we handle stuttering. We want you to keep stuttering. It's not a bad thing. Like I want you to
Exactly.
realize that. I was like, oh my gosh, like I never realized that.
Yeah,
Because
me too.
that's why I wanted to go to speech therapy. I was like, I want to get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like a lot of studies show that young kids stutter, right?
Mm-hmm.
A pretty big number of kids stutter, but some of them do grow out of it. But that's
Yeah.
not really like a cure, right? It's not like they were like
Mm-hmm.
fed medicine or like went to
Mm-hmm.
therapy for hours and they got cured. It was just a
Mm-hmm.
natural thing. But at the same time, a lot of people don't grow out of it, like you or me, which is like
Mm-hmm.
also fine.
Yeah, because I have looked up like famous people who stutter,
Mm-hmm.
and literally all of them say like they outgrew it. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
it's strange.
that really like discourages me because I'm like,
Yeah.
I want like a famous person who still stutters,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't really think of any right now, but a lot of them, oh, I think it was Shaquille O'Neal, he
Oh, really?
stuttered.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. That's very cool.
And but it was like, oh yeah, he grew out of it. I was like,
Yeah.
you can't relate to me. But like I've seen a lot more media now, like on TikTok too.
Mm-hmm, me too.
I've seen like a few people who stutter, and like they're getting a lot of more followers. So I'm really glad about that, because like it's actual people who stutter and who are older, like not
Yeah.
just like little, they're like older, and they're talking about stuttering. And I'm like, this is, yes, we need this.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for one thing, I'm so glad that the president of the US right now, Joe Biden, he had experience with stuttering when he was younger and he still stutters. It is pretty rare and far between, but he does stutter sometimes. So it's great to
Mm-hmm.
see. It's like very encouraging to see that someone who stutters can literally become the president of the United States. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
so encouraging. That's so great. But
Exactly.
but I definitely know what you mean about that like growing out of it thing. But yeah, I've also seen like a lot of Instagram stars or like people on TikTok that post about their experiences with stuttering and they try to raise awareness for it, which I think is great. It's
Me
kind of
too.
yeah, and it's kind of like the same thing I'm trying to do, and I don't know, I really just appreciate that they're doing it on social media where so many people can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look in the description of this episode, I'll add some TikTok or Instagram accounts who post about stuttering and you can check them out. I think it'll be a great opportunity. All right, so the next one on the list is this kind of ties into what we talked about before, but it's pretending to stutter to get sympathy. This is kind of the same thing, but just like a short thing about it. Um, People who stutter shouldn't get sympathy in the first place. Like, I don't know. That's not what we're looking for, right? We're not
Mm-hmm.
looking for people to like feel sorry for us because we stutter. We just want to be treated just like everyone else.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially like in movies too, like even the
Mhm.
movie that I watched, it was like, oh, he stutters, like, oh, be nice to him.
Yeah.
Cause like, oh, be nice. I'm just like, yes, you should be nice in general,
Yeah, it
not
should
just for
be
people who stutter. Like,
exactly.
it's kind of like, oh, like, oh, like, be like nice to this person, or be like, oh, because they're sensitive. Just
Mhm.
like, we're sensitive because you do this, first of all. But
Exactly.
I feel like it's like a lot of, it's more of society. Like it's not really in the media, I feel
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
It's more like just society in general. It's like, oh, if someone isn't like the norm, it's like, oh, be nice to them. Like, oh, like don't ask why they don't talk like that.
Mhm.
Don't like ask why they look like that, or why they're wearing certain things. It's like, oh, like shh, like be quiet about it. I'm like, it's okay to ask.
Exactly, yeah.
Like I'm totally okay with like a little kid, like, oh, why do you talk like that? And now just be like, oh, I have a stutter. And it's just, it takes me longer to say. And it's like, it's okay. And then, okay, like that's
Yeah, end of
literally
story.
perfect.
Yeah, that's totally
Exactly.
fine. Yeah, and when we say just be respectful and kind, that doesn't mean be nice to people who stutter no matter what we do. It just means
Mm-hmm.
don't treat us badly. Like that's what we
Mm-hmm.
mean. And
Yeah.
yeah, and like you said, you should be respectful and nice to everyone. And I'm sure there are people who stutter out there who are jerks and not really nice people. So that doesn't
Definitely.
mean you have to like be like super super, I don't know. It doesn't mean like you have to just ignore that and just be nice to them because they stutter, but just don't treat us differently because we stutter. That's
Yeah.
basically it.
And actually last night I had to work a basketball game at my school,
Oh, okay.
and my teacher chose me to like welcome people and like ask if they had any symptoms of COVID. And I haven't really told anybody in like ASB, like the student body, like that I stutter.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I've posted about it, but I haven't like went up to my teachers and been like, oh, I stutter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, me too.
and a lot of like older people don't understand like what they shouldn't do. Like, and I'm glad that we're making this podcast because I can show my teachers this and be like,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
stuttered, don't do this.
Yeah, that'd be a great
But
opportunity.
even when I was like welcoming people and asking them questions, I was kind of stuttering, and like a few people I could tell they're like, oh, okay, thanks. I kind of felt like they were like being like very like kind of sorry for me, I guess.
Yeah,
Like,
like a little
oh,
bit.
she can't talk. Or like, oh, okay, thank you, honey. And like other people were just like, okay, thanks. But
Yeah,
like
I know what you mean.
those like certain people, I'm like, don't treat me different just because I can't say things like how you say them,
Exactly.
or I can't talk normally. Like, I'm like, we just need to make this like normal of to don't treat people that don't seem the normal a different way. Like, oh, be nice to them.
Right. Yeah, I think that will definitely come with more spread awareness. I feel like it's natural to do that when you don't like understand what's going on. You feel like you just want to be extra nice. I think that's the
Yeah.
sentiment. Which like I
Yeah.
get. But yeah, I totally get what you mean and I completely agree. It just feels like you're different in a not so great way
Yeah, exactly.
sometimes. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, this is a great opportunity for people who stutter um to spread knowledge to people who don't stutter, right? Because it's just like a long list. Yeah.
Okay, so then the last thing I think is finishing sentences or guessing what the person who's stuttering. Oh, I have experienced this so many
Yeah, me
times.
too.
And I feel like it's for like everyone who stutters, like anyone can relate to this.
Yeah, for sure.
Like it's especially if the other person that you're talking to is in a rush, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's okay, like I'm just trying, like I'm stuttering, like don't try to rush me. But it's especially like in the drive-through or ordering, or like it's mostly at like restaurants,
Yeah.
just because it's trying to go fast, trying to get your food.
Right.
And my mom has experienced this because I don't really drive yet, but she's experienced this a lot because sometimes my mom gets stuck on like cappuccino or like frappuccino, and so she'll be like kind of having a block. So especially in the drive-thru, you can't really hear that well.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, and they're like, cappuccino. And she's like, no. And they're like, a hot drink? No. And they're like, I'm sorry, what was that? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
just wait. Just wait until they say it.
Yeah.
And I've definitely had this, and it's mostly at like Starbucks. And I'm like, oh, can I? And they're just like, yeah. And I'm just like, stop. Like you're making me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like I'm trying to say it. You can tell that I'm trying to say it. And like even at like school or something, like it's like, oh, can I have 2 tickets? And it's like, can I have two? And they're like, tickets. I'm just like, okay. I didn't really want you to finish my sentence, but okay.
Yeah, I think that's exactly how it goes. I can totally relate to that.
And
Mhm.
I know like in second grade, that's what like my teacher did. She kind of like just finished my sentence because I was like having a block, but like you
Right.
could see that my mouth was open and I
Yeah.
was trying to say it. And she was just like days, blah 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 blah, blah, and like just finished my whole entire, like she finished the word for me, and then she finished the rest of the sentence,
Wow.
and I was just like, "Yep, I'm never talking again in this
Oh no.
class." And I was like, that like even in general, like don't finish people's sentences.
Yeah, it's just
Like
yeah.
it's just like common courtesy, like even like interrupting people,
Yeah.
like people who stutter and people who don't. Just don't interrupt people. Just let them finish.
Yeah, and it just like I said, it just doesn't really make sense. Like if someone was just saying a sentence, would you just cut them off and finish the
Mm-hmm.
rest of it for them? Like no, you wouldn't. So why would you
Yeah.
do that for someone who's stuttering? Just wait patiently, like we said in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And like I said before, if you're comfortable with it and you want to be a bit more open about your stutter, like during opportunities like you said, if you're stuttering at a drive-through or talking to someone, I think that'd be a great time to say like, oh sorry, I stutter, please just give me a minute. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure a lot of people, like most people, would be like, oh I'm sorry, and they would like
Yeah.
realize what they were doing. And
Yeah.
it's an honest mistake, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's understandable, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or like especially like even not even saying that you have a stutter if you're not comfortable with that yet.
Hmm.
Just like say like, oh, it takes me longer to say some words.
Exactly.
But then sometimes you stutter on that sentence and you're just like, oh my gosh.
That's true.
But
That's
like
true.
in general, I feel like I feel like a lot more people need to know what stuttering is
For sure.
and what not to do. Like I'm
Mhm.
really glad that we're doing this. Like
Yeah,
this
I'm glad you.
episode
I'm
is
glad you
about
could be
like
here too.
not like what not to do for people who stutter. And
Hmm.
it's like, yes, this is like I needed this like 5 6 years ago to
Oh
show
yeah,
people, but like I'm really glad I did this.
yeah. I'm very glad you think so too. Oh yeah, and this was just a list compiled by the two of us and what we saw that was common. But if you have any additions to make as someone who stutters or someone even who doesn't stutter, just send me an email and maybe we can revisit it in a future episode. So yeah, feel free to do that. All right, so that was a whopping 12 things for people who don't stutter that can make the lives of people who do stutter a lot more comfortable and a lot better. And if you listen to the whole thing, I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm very thankful for all of the listeners that were open to understanding and just listening to what we go through. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening, like I said. And Kacie, thank you so much for doing this with me. It was really, really great.
Of course, I loved it so much. I've never been a part of a podcast, but I'm
Yeah.
glad this one, like this is my first time
Hmm.
because it's about stuttering and we're raising more awareness.
Yeah.
I'm really thank you so much for inviting me to this.
Yeah, of course. I'm so glad you could join. And yeah, I really like this episode.
Me too.
All right. Thank you for listening and and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye, Kacie.
Bye.